Context: I, 27 male, am the illegitimate son of a very powerful and influential household in my country. I won't divulge names to preserve my privacy and security. I was born from a forbidden relationship between my mother and my father. My mother is the daughter of a great conglomerate, and that makes her name carry weight in my country, and her relationship with my father, who's a working-class man, was forbidden by her family. However, when she got pregnant, things got a bit complicated. Her family wanted her to get rid of me and cease every relationship with my dad, and she was going to do that. From what I understood, she was never really interested in having a proper relationship with my dad, just some fun. My father went to them and signed a contract. She would birth me and give me up to him. He would raise me alone and never tell anyone of my lineage. He raised me the best he could and eventually got married to my stepmother, who I've always come to consider my own mother. They now also have another child, my half-brother, 10 male, who I absolutely adore, but he never really told me anything about my birth mother. Current days. I studied my butt off in school and college and got into medicine. Now I'm already a full-fledged surgeon, with my specialty being plastic surgery. That gave me the possibility of being very well off and give my dad and my family a very comfortable life. However, after 27 years, my birth mother contacted me. At first, I thought it was a scam and told my dad about it. That was when he told me the whole story and confirmed that this woman was indeed my birth mother. The reason she was contacting me was because she learned of my career and wants me to help her daughter to get into the residency for plastic surgery. It is a very hard thing to get into, and if you do have someone to vouch for you, it gets easier. This woman contacted me to ask for help for her daughter. It was not to reconnect with me, not to get to know me. She wanted a favor. I told her no. Why would I help someone who I don't really know? The following days have been a nightmare. I've been constantly getting messages and phone calls from her, calling me an ungrateful son, saying things like, "I birthed you and deserve some respect." Also, there's been some threats to myself due to her background. I discussed it with my family and my close friends, and everyone seemed to be on my side. However, I know that if I continue to deny this particular group of people, I'll eventually have to leave my home country and possibly take my family with me, disrupting their whole life, and that does make me feel really guilty. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. This situation sounds insane. Your egg donor deserves nothing from you, particularly not respect. Not the a-hole. You don't owe them anything just because she birthed you. Although, not really sure how this would work, but couldn't you threaten to spread your birth story if she keeps threatening you? Your dad signed the contract not to reveal anything, not you. What the actual hell? She doesn't want anything to do with you unless it's to help herself? She doesn't deserve a second of your time, and drop and block her. This happened after a pretty ducked-up night of getting high off my butt with my brother and his wife. Add in drinking, and we were all pretty ducked up. Most of the night was a blur, but basically her and I slept together, with his permission, and he was also there. But in the morning we realized how badly we messed up and agreed it will never happen again. My brother and I became a little estranged for a while because it was too weird to be around each other. They later announced being pregnant, but I thought I was safe because she took Plan B the morning after it happened just in case. After he was born, I was getting doubts though, and really wanted to know for sure he wasn't mine. My brother eventually agreed to a paternity test, and that said I'm the father. I've been wanting to be in my son's life, but they won't let me. My family was on his side about it, and told me to stop being selfish because on paper, this is his child, since they're married, and if I'm around, it's going to complicate their marriage even more. The whole time I tried to convince them my parents would say I'm a horrible younger brother. He felt that way too when I'd ask if I could at least come over and maybe play with him for a little bit. So about 2 months ago, I gave up, but kept my distance from them because it hurts too much. He's 10 months old, still haven't gotten to hold him. But now because his mother-in-law got into an accident, they want me to watch him for a few days. My brother is flying with her to go see her mom because he has to help out too. Our parents right now are in the UK for a couple months. They can't bring him because they're worried he might get sick if they take him to an airport. My brother says it's only 3 days. If there was anyone else that could watch him, then he'd ask, but he really needs help. I told him no, because it's fine with me being a sitter when it's at their convenience, but I'm not allowed to be a dad to my son? Then it might also hurt a lot more to actually spend time with him than to have to give him back and not be allowed to see him anymore. We started arguing, and we were yelling at each other. My brother told me to grow up and stop being petty about what happened, even more right now that there's an actual emergency and they need someone's help. I do feel bad because I get it. It's a serious issue happening with her mom, so they need to be there. At the same time, I'm still mad about what they did, so I don't know if that's just being petty or not. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. This is beyond am I the a-hole pay grade. I think it's unfair for them to ask you to babysit when they clearly know that you want and have an emotional attachment. Not the a-hole. After you watch them for the 3 days, then what? They rip them from your arms again? They're lucky you haven't sued for visitation. Everyone sucks here for creating this situation in the first place. Either suck it up and let your brother be the kid's father and stop fighting it, or go to a lawyer and get your parental rights established and prepare to be estranged from your family. But stop whining about not getting to be the kid's father and uncle at the same time, and only the ways you want. And think about what's best for this poor baby boy. My husband and I have a 17-year-old son, Jake. Jake is about 6'4". My husband is around 5'10", and I'm 5'10" as well. My husband's family are all average height, while my family is a lot taller. I'm actually the shortest of 3 sisters and a brother. But like most sane people, I don't care about height. I assumed my husband didn't either, seeing that he married me and would defend me every time one of his bros tried making a rude joke. But ever since our son surpassed our height when he was 15, my husband has been making a few very off comments. Basically, just things like, "He's too tall, is he even mine?" You know, comments that make it seem like I cheated on him. Jake also has more of my features, so yeah. I never thought much of his comments because he still treated our son like our other kids and would only say it once every year or something. Also, my mom had cancer, so I was a bit distracted. Anyways, my husband and I were picking my brother up from the hospital, and I don't know why, but my husband thought it would be a great idea to start complaining about our son. He said the usual, "He's nothing like me, he's not smart, he's too tall, he likes the sports I dislike, etc." That has to mean something, right? I was honestly so over it and asked him if he was a ducking idiot. He's a biology teacher for duck's sake. Does he not know how genetics work? I said all that and told him that if he was so ducking concerned, then he can get a paternity test, but I'm done with him. My brother heard all of this and told my husband to quit acting like a jerk, and that was it until we dropped my brother off. Then he started yelling at me, saying I didn't have to say all that in front of my brother and that I embarrassed him. He said that he already doesn't like being around my brother because he's 6'6", and I just made him feel worse. I called him crazy for being intimidated, jealous of my brother, and also said he did this to himself, and he needs to stop talking about our son like that. He just said that he's venting to me, his wife, and it's not like he's doing anything to our son. He claims I'm overreacting and being a drama queen. I just said, "Says you," but he insists I'm the a-hole, and after dropping me home, left and still hasn't come home. My mother said that he's being crazy, but I didn't have to say anything in front of my brother, and I did overdo it a bit. My sister agrees as well, and they think I should apologize for that. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. He should be embarrassed about crap-talking his son in front of company. Not the a-hole. Your husband disrespected you in front of your brother by questioning your marital fidelity. That's not venting. Your husband sounds insecure and jealous. I'm a 6'1" woman, and my biological mother was 5'3". Your husband needs to sort his juvenile, overcompensating, dumb, insecure butt out, and not make his child pay for his own self-esteem issues. You're a grown man. Sort your crap out and not subject your child to it. Update. My husband still wasn't messaging me back, and my kids were starting to notice that something was off. I ended up telling them that their dad had an emergency, but they didn't really buy it. Teenagers. Anyways, I texted my husband one last time saying that if he didn't answer by the morning, then I'm done. I'm exhausted, and I refuse to deal with his BS anymore. I told him that he can expect divorce papers soon if he plans on ignoring me. Guess who replied in the morning? He told me if I was being serious, and I said that I was. I also told him that he can do a paternity test, but he can tell our son why. He started crying. Yeah, he started crying after calling me a drama queen and said that he's just insecure because his friends puts ideas in his head. When I asked him why he has more faith in them than me, he didn't answer. I told him to get some therapy because I can't and refuse to be with someone who is jealous of their own child. I told him to imagine how our son would feel if he knows just how much he resents him. Husband interrupted, saying that he doesn't hate him, and I told him to ducking prove it then. He was quiet for a while, but said he'd see a therapist. This was such a relief, and I almost cried too. We both agreed that he'd stay with his sister. He's been with her this whole time, until his first session. I told our children that their father isn't mentally well right now, but they can visit him anytime. Our son was very worried and called him immediately. Husband called me later saying he feels so guilty, especially after their phone call. I just said good. Honestly, I still don't know how this will end. I want to believe in my husband, but I'm finding it so hard. My son does feel like his dad and him aren't very close, but he isn't aware of any of my husband's thoughts. On another note, my brother called me saying he talked to my husband a few days ago and said that he gave my husband a real reason to be scared, intimidated by him. My sister also came to her senses after my brother made fun of her. Gotta love older brothers, right? My mom still thinks I should apologize for the kids. I mean, so long as she isn't butting in, she's entitled to her own opinion. I dated my ex for 3 years before he abruptly dumped me with no explanation. I found out I was pregnant shortly after, and I chose not to tell him because I knew he and his family would make me get rid of it. I was raising my son alone until 8 months ago when his lawyer contacted me to inform me my ex wanted a paternity test. Now, my ex is in our son's life, which would be okay if he didn't keep trying to get me to give him a second chance. For the last 5 months, he's been sending me and our son gifts weekly, saying all of the right things. He's won over all of my family and friends, who think he's wonderful, but I don't trust him. The biggest reason I don't trust him is that he claims he knew I was pregnant and had given birth to a boy, but he won't tell me how he knew or why he never contacted me until 8 months ago. Nobody seems to understand why I'm not falling all over him already, and they keep trying to convince me to give him a chance. My cousin, sister, and some of our friends were all talking about it recently. I was getting more annoyed the longer the conversation went on, since they all know I don't like talking about him. When they started saying I was his one that got away, I just couldn't hold it anymore, and I yelled at them. I said things like if they thought he was so great, they were welcome to him, that they were all too blind and stupid to see he was up to something, and that I wasn't his one that got away because he threw me away himself. I ended up leaving because they just kept arguing with me, and I was already regretting saying anything, and I didn't want to say anything worse. My sister told me the day after that I was acting like a bee because I was upset I had to share my son with him, and I needed to not take it out on other people. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Trust your gut instinct. Just keep doing you and raising your son. You don't have to be together to be successful co-parents. Try talking to the baby daddy and tell him that you don't want to get together, but that you do want to have a healthy friendship and co-parenting relationship. Have a genuine heart-to-heart with him and be honest about how you feel and that you don't see him in a romantic way anymore. Not the a-hole. You're not obligated to be with anyone, least of all the ex who abandoned you without reason. Set clear boundaries with your friends and family. If they don't listen, go low contact. As for the ex, do everything through the courts. That way, if he bails, you have legal recourse. Not the a-hole. Dig your heels in. He dropped you like a sack of potatoes, and you had so little trust in him that you hid the pregnancy for fear that he'd somehow force you to get rid of it. Snacks and flowers don't fix that. They need to back off. Make it a boundary. If they can't keep the conversation off you getting back together with your ex, you're leaving. So, 7 years ago, I briefly dated a girl, Sarah. She ended things months after when work got too busy for her, but later found out she was pregnant and assumed it was mine. Looking back now, I know I was naive to not question being the father. The first 10 months after my son Nick was born, I truly believed he was mine. Sarah confessed she started having doubts because we looked nothing alike. She admitted to having a drunk hookup once, but because I was the only other guy she slept with regularly, she was so sure I was the father. We did a paternity test and found out he wasn't mine. It was the most heartbreaking moment of my life. I was hurt and angry. Sarah felt so guilty. She offered to take full responsibility of Nick, and I'd never have to see them again. After I processed this, I realized I still loved Nick and couldn't imagine my life without him, so I continued being involved as his dad. I eventually forgave Sarah. I know it was wrong of her to not tell me beforehand, but we managed to work past it. Nick is 7 years old now, and still the best thing to ever happen to me. My older sister recently moved back into the country, and we started talking again since we didn't have any contact before. She knows I have a son, but has only seen a few baby pics. She finally met Nick weeks ago. When we talked on the phone a few days ago, she joked about us not looking alike, and he must take after Sarah's family. I decided to be honest and told her the whole story. My sister ended up losing it, but I told her it was years ago, Nick is my son, and we work things out. But my sister wasn't having it. She has also been overprotective since we were kids and has a habit of being too nosy. So for her, I can see how this looked, especially since Sarah and I recently started dating again, but taking things slow. We had a long talk about this. I thought I got through to her that I was happy with my life and to stay out of it. But the next day, Sarah told me my sister called her to talk crap and said she's a baby-trapping C. She didn't want to say what else my sister said, so I assumed it wasn't good. Immediately, I called my sister and told her she had no right to call Sarah when things are already fine. My sister said she was only looking out for me. She apparently also told Sarah that she and Nick should stay out of my life, as they're not my responsibility. Oh, I was furious. I said she needs to mind her own damn business and stay out of my life. She was hurt for saying that when she was just angry on my behalf and felt I was treated unfairly. Our argument led us nowhere, so I hung up. My parents believe I was too harsh, and her reaction is understandable. I don't believe I was, when she had no right to interfere. I told her the truth so it wouldn't be a big reveal later, not for her to come and fix my life. My parents, however, insist I'm wrong here, so I'd like to know what others think. Was I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Being a father is so much more than just biology. Continue to be a wonderful father to your son, and your sister definitely owes you both an apology. Not the a-hole. You chose to be involved in a child's life. There's nothing for her to be mad about that. Formally adopt your son, though. If something happened to Sarah, he would be out of your life forever. Not the a-hole. A father is that man that shows up and raises a child. The man who is there through the good and the bad, thick and thin. Never ever be ashamed of being there for your son. It is none of your sister's business. She had no right to do what she did.